Hello everybody, this is Dr. Dan. For this first initial discussion post of your program, I thought it would be helpful if I provided you not only a video to explain the process, but also an example of how to format your discussion post so that way you effectively address all of the requirements of your discussion. So let's go ahead and take a look at our week 1 discussion. First off, the model that you're going to use, that I'm going to explain to you, can be used for pretty much every single discussion post you make throughout your graduate program. I'm basically showing you a 5-paragraph model. Sometimes it might be 4 paragraphs depending on how many questions are asked of you, how many things you have to address in the initial discussion. But this model pretty much works for every single post you have. So let's go ahead and take a peek here. What we have is, as I scroll down, we have, in this particular discussion, we have several parts to it. First off, you have to explore the divisions of the APA website. Once you do that, then you go ahead and watch one or perhaps even more of these videos here, but we just ask that you watch one video. And then for your initial discussion post, we can see here that there are 3 bullet points. So this should be an indication that perhaps you're going to need 3 primary sections of your discussion. And what I mean by primary sections, that does not include maybe a brief paragraph as an introduction, letting the reader know what you are going to address in that discussion, and then a short conclusion paragraph. So that's how we come up with 5 paragraphs in this particular example. The first bullet point here asks, what is the psychological construct or big idea shared by the presenter? So what that tells me is that paragraph should not only, it shouldn't just answer the question, so what's the psychological construct? We're not just going to simply say, let's say, positive psychology. If you watched, for instance, this first video, you would describe it. You describe and summarize the construct, the big idea, and maybe some of the details that the presenter, in this case Dr. Seligman, presented. Now for the next paragraph, or this next bullet point, it says, based on what you discovered when exploring the divisions of the APA website, that was this part 1 up here, which subfields of psychology would the presentation you watched be applicable to? And then there's another question here, explain why you would believe this to be the case based on what you learned about the divisions within the APA. So that'll be your next paragraph. You're going to synthesize or kind of combine what you learned about the APA and the various divisions, and then what you learned within that presentation. You're going to combine those two and describe that what you discovered. And then finally, what questions arose in your mind while you watched the presentation? So in this final component of your initial discussion post, you're not only going to provide some questions, which will ultimately help other students who read your discussion post. It'll help them maybe engage you more, but also explain why. Explain why that question came to mind when you're watching that presentation. So as I scroll down a little bit more here, now you can see I provided you with, let me try to scroll a little bit more. I provided you with a format that you can follow to create your discussion post, to create an effective initial discussion post. Example, you'll first say hello class, then put a space there, then for your first paragraph you'll provide an introduction, what you plan to address in the discussion post. So that's that first bullet point, then a space, then paragraph 2 will be that second bullet point, then another space, paragraph 3 will be the next bullet point. Actually, I should say the first, this will be a brief, sorry about that, this will be a brief introduction, then the first bullet, second bullet, third bullet in these paragraphs 2, 3, and 4. And then finally in your last paragraph, just discuss, summarize, provide any conclusions that you made in your discussion post. Then another space, and finally you're going to put the word references, another space, and list any references that you used to support any of your findings. And that'll make much more sense in your future discussion posts as you read research literature and you have to cite those sources. So that'll become more and more important later on. But for now, I just really want to have you do your best to apply this particular format to your discussion post, your initial discussion post, because that will be applied in most of your initial discussion posts in the future. And when I say initial, just to help define that, that's the first discussion post that you make each week, where you respond to all of the detailed instructions like we provided here. Okay, and then later on in the week, that's when you start responding to students. So this format doesn't necessarily apply to your responses to other students, which might only be, let's say, one paragraph. This applies to that initial discussion post. So I hope that helps, and I look forward to seeing some really quality discussions as you go through this particular class and your entire program.